This was my first one, and I have to say this was absolutely phenomenal.
Hi, I'm Elisa Gums with Black Enterprise here at the Black Men Excel Summit for our Black Men Excel Spotlight Series with one of our many men of excellence. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Dr. Obari Cartman. I'm a psychologist based out of Chicago. I curate mental wellness events for Black men and boys, incorporating art, culture, hip hop, drums, a lot of community access. So I go into jails, juvenile detention centers, community centers, high schools, and just take the therapy to where the people are and make it fun and engaging.
How did you come to do that work, and why do you do this work?
When I first started, even in school doing internships, it became very apparent that there weren't a lot of Black men in the mental health space. And so that became my clientele. They would send me the boys anytime I would go to a center. And that sort of became like my niche. And it worked because I am, as a Black man who still very much feels like I'm continuing on a journey of my own healing and learning and growing, that I get to invite other men to just share what I know and also learn together what we all need to know to help be better.
If you think back to early in your career, was there one piece of advice you got that really sticks with you still?
No. Which is interesting to me because as I think about my life, my career, it has happened in chapters. So there have been moments in time when I needed an inspiration or a motivation to achieve a thing, and then I moved to a different thing, right? And so my career has been very diverse, if you will, and there's lots of different things that I draw on. I'm a drummer, I'm a photographer, I'm a writer, so I do a lot of different things. So it has not been a career for me. It's just been doing what feels good at the time, what feels useful, working in different capacities. And so, talk about wearing a lot of different hats, but I think that it feels very natural to me to do what I see my children do, which is to just express themselves in as many ways as feels comfortable to them. And, we put the hat on them like, oh, you see him drawing, oh, you're gonna be an artist. But like, no, he just felt like drawing in that moment. And so I just have applied that into my work. And so, I use psychologist as a title, but it really looks very different from day to day. And sometimes it's not a psychologist. Sometimes it's just an educator or a mentor or a writer or whatever it is. And so for different aspects of myself and different phases of the journey, there have been things that people have told me that have been very useful.
But is there a best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
I feel like at some point people have said different versions of stay true to yourself that I've kept. So just the authenticity, being sincere, I think has been the expertise that I lean on. So when I come into a room, I don't even enter most rooms as Dr. Cartman. I come in as Obari, who just wants to share space and learn from you and connect. And so me being my authentic self and doing what feels genuine to me and connecting to my God-given natural gifts and talents, I think that's been the most useful thing. And I know people have said that along the way. Because in the beginning, I started relatively young in graduate school and was teaching at the universities. And I remember trying to put on, trying to look like what I thought a professor is supposed to look like. And I would wear glasses and I had a fake wedding ring and I had a tie. I had a whole charade. I was like a caricature of what I thought a successful, articulate professor was supposed to be. And the more I do work, the more I realize that the thing that I bring most genuinely and expertly is just me and my comfortable self and what I really actually love to do and the way I actually speak. And so the more I am myself and the more I bring that into the work and integrate those aspects of myself, the more effective I feel like I am.
What has mentorship meant to your life?
Mentorship is critical. I think that there's an illusion sometimes of success where we make it to a level and then we post on the gram that, I made it from the bottom and now I'm here. But I know everybody that I know that has done anything successful has had help. So that's certainly my story. The things that I know, if I say something that sounds smart to someone, I know where I got it from, right? I often point to them. Like as a psychologist, there are, a dozen or so sort of Black elder psychologists that I've read, that I studied from, that I just left the panel just now. And someone said, you ever heard of Naeem Akbar? And I was like, that's my mentor, right? So I'm glad that you hear Naeem. He said, you remind me of him, right? And I think that's the process, right? And so I gather these things from these mentors and these experts and these sort of wisdom keepers and storytellers, and I do my best to integrate them, make them mine, and then make them relevant for the younger generation. I believe that's sort of my role as a bridge.
You just mentioned one of the key mentors in your life. What did he teach you?
He was one of the first psychologists that was very firm in centering mental health conversations in the Black cultural experience and writing about that in a way that was public and accessible. I think a lot of times the PhD process can be isolating and removes people from communities, and then sort of the hazing process of graduating through the academic process makes you sometimes feel like you're better than, and you have to speak a certain way and you have to write a certain way, and then you go back home and then people are like, what are you talking about? I don't even understand, right, the language. And so Naeem Akbar was one of those that he wrote a bunch of books and they were very sort of plain speak. They were just very conversational. He wasn't trying to impress people with the articulate words he learned in the academy. He was just like, no, I'm just going to build man to man, woman to woman. And so he gave me a model for being accessible in a way that I've maintained.
How would you describe your leadership style?
I lead very much in a collaborative sort of a way. I'm not really good on like the hierarchy, domination, conquering type of, I think capitalism requires certain levels that I reject. So as a leader, I like to open space to allow whoever is working with me, and I say with me, right, and even not under me, who works with me to shine their brightest, to find, everybody has gifts and talents, and I think that when you find yourself underneath or shrinking or trying to fit, then I think we lose a lot of the genius that people come into teams and organizations with. So I lead very much by like allowing people to be themselves as I'm being myself, so that the combination of our talents, gifts, inspirations can create a synergy that I couldn't have imagined if I, in my leadership brain, was like, this is the way, this is what I've experienced, and let me just help. I want you to follow that. I'm very much I want to follow too. I'm always learning, right? I'm always, I believe that I've learned a lot from people in so many different like walks of life and perspectives. That I've had some of the most intelligent conversations in prisons than, even compared to the universities. So like, I just think there's brilliance everywhere, particularly for Black people. So I think that if we are open to that, then there's so much that we can get from collaborating. And so I like to lead as a member of a team who might have a specific role, right? I might have to execute certain tasks, but that isn't more important or more valuable than anybody else that I'm working with.
What do you think is the biggest challenge facing Black men in general, and Black men in your industry specifically?
Black men in general, I think that we are living in a system that was not designed for our success. I believe that because we're so brilliant and tough as a people, that we have achieved a great deal despite upstream, but I think that those systems are still very much in place. I believe that the generations of harm and trauma and violence that have created the America that we know continues to operate in a way that benefits itself and the people that are in charge and controlling those resources. And as much as there are people like us that are trying to be change agents and try to empower the people and change the economic, mental, physical wellness of the community, there are people that are very happy with things just as it is, and that they're invested in things staying the way they are, and they profit from some of the pain that we are trying to heal. And so there's opposition to the work. So it's not just good enough to work hard and put your head down and just go to school, and like we have to think about doing that against a very structured system of opposition that doesn't hate us. They are just invested in making sure that their kids and grandkids are in the same position that they're in. So those systems and structures and infrastructures are in place to obstruct the wellness and the mobility, the ascension of Black men, Black people. And in the field, it's the same, right? And so I went to school. I talked about sort of becoming a PhD in the field, but that had to mean reading a bunch of white people and regurgitating their information and coming from a perspective that is not ours, and having to define expertise and success based on sort of a mainstream version of a way of being that is not always congruent with what I think we need as Black people. And so having to play both games, reading Naeem Akbar, but not being assigned Naeem Akbar, and having to have my own journey of being an effective healer and an effective psychologist, while also balancing what does it mean to be successful and pay bills and play the game, but not be consumed by it and identify with it. So I think that's a Black person, a Black male challenge in general, trying to be of the system and play it, work it, but not be inundated with it in a way that it reshifts, reconceptualizes what we think it means to be a man, to be a human, to be successful, to be well, and find ways to define those things on our terms, and then find ways to create the institutions that can sustain those things, so that it's not just an idea.
Despite those challenges, you've had tons of successes. Can you share with us one of your biggest wins?
So when I think about success, it really is, like, I've never really been one for like the awards, the accolades. Because of the system I described, right? Because of the ways in which we are defining what it means to be successful and well and human, and those things being determined by someone outside of our communities and culture, when I think of being rewarded or celebrated by those systems, it makes me nervous. I might feel like, oh wait, I might be acquiescing, right? I've made too many compromises if the American Psychological Association is recognizing my work. So whenever my people, my community says, good job, that's the accolade that I see. Whenever a young person comes and says, because of a conversation we had, I think about it differently now, or I've tried something that I hadn't tried before, those are the things that motivate me. That's what keeps me going.
So success for you is about the impact you're having
Absolutely.
on your community.
All day.
What makes you a Black man who excels?
I am a Black man that excels because I've had amazing Black parents who excelled and loved and cared about me. I had an amazing community that gave me everything I needed. I am a product of my community, and so I do my best to create more communities where more young people can be products of them. I think that we are influenced by our world and our relationships, good, bad, or ugly. And so if we're intentional about them, then I believe we can all excel. And so I am very much, in any position that I am because someone sacrificed, someone gave, someone cared. And so I continue to pay that forward.
Thank you.